Frank Nazar kind of in that bumper role on the power play. I know he also played net front even in World Championships, but what's kind of been your instruction to him about him playing in the middle there?
Well, first, I do think there's some flexibility for him to go to the net front / goal line and Bert to go in the bumper. And we actually tried that a little bit last night, so we'll have some flexibility for those two guys to switch spots. When he's in the bumper, I know Mike Vellucci's worked with him about watching, then actually Brian King going back to this summer, just about watching some of the bumper guys and how they kind of support the puck. Ultimately, my take on the bumper to be successful there is you have to be smart enough to kind of find the little quiet areas, and you got to get the shot off quick and elevate it quickly. And I think that's why a guy like Braden Point has been so good there. That's why Reinhardt's been so good there. And then the other piece of that is kind of watching a guy like Dylan Larkin, who's really thrived in the bumper, but he's also thrived doing it not necessarily in the kind of one-time spot. As a lefty, when Kane has the puck, he kind of gets into those real quiet areas, but he's able to catch and release so quickly. So if you imagine, just flip the side, Connor has the puck, getting Frank to be able to catch and release like that, it will be really important. So it's a work in progress. We'll see how it continues to go.
A lot was made of Connor's just to work, put in the speed and adding some quickness. Where are you seeing that maybe different than what you saw on tape?
It's a little bit hard for me because I think seeing stuff on tape and seeing stuff live firsthand is difficult. But I'll rely a little bit on the information I'm given from people that have been around here, and everybody says he's definitely quicker, definitely more agile, definitely more explosive, definitely more endurance within the shift. And all those things lead to him being in a situations to either get the spots quicker to get open or transport the puck up the ice better or pressure and get the puck back. So, part of what Connor did this summer too is try to come up with a game plan to he's somebody who probably has to watch overworking and has to make sure, I know he looked at this summer a little differently than he did the previous summer where, getting himself to a spot where he wasn't going to be burnt out by October, and so all I know is what I see. He's been quick, he's been agile, he's been on pucks. I certainly like the things that I see out of him.
I saw you talking to Del Mastro before practice. I've probably been a tough training camp for him, but what's the message that you have for him? And not reading too much into the last week and a half, but also recognizing that it is an important time for guys to separate themselves.
It is. I think the biggest thing with Ethan is I love his swag. I love his makeup, his moxie, him as a person. And those are important things. I think he's a guy that you want in your locker room. He's a foxhole guy. Those things are all going to go a long way. I think a lot of times bigger guys, it takes a little bit longer to get going. It's just reality. I've seen it, time and again in different situations where, and so I just don't know that, he's played, he hasn't played to the level that I know he can still play at. But he's played good. It's not that he hasn't, he's just I know there's another level there, and some of that comes from just, as a big man, he carries he's just a big man. It takes a while to get going sometimes. So, getting used to the systems. Him and I talked about that. Like when you get used to new systems, sometimes you're thinking about what does the coach want me to do instead of just going out and playing and then getting kind of coached after, and that can slow you down, especially if you're someone who cares a lot and wants to do it right. You can almost overcare and instead of just kind of going out and playing. So I think ultimately he'll get one more game in this preseason, and long term I think he's a real good player and a real good piece for us.
Do you know how you want to use those last two games?
As I see it today, we'll probably have a lineup, closer to our opening day lineup on Friday, and then we wouldn't play many of those guys back to back. So not as good a lineup on Saturday. I wouldn't say it's necessarily our opening game lineup, but it's going to be closer to that.
A couple days ago, you talked about roster decisions with forwards and how players might fit into different groups and what might be best for them. Do you see guys like Oliver Moore and Lucas Reichel in different groups when you're evaluating them, or kind of in the same position?
I think they're in different groups in the sense that one's a first-year pro, and so like that's a different kind of animal than Lucas, who's been around a bit, you know. So I think we just got to let it kind of play out and see, you know, kind of getting that balance between where guys can help us the most come Tuesday against Florida and what's best for their long-term development. And you know, I think the younger or newer pro that you are, the more that you're kind of you know, cognitive of the fact that it, you know, might be best to be in a position to thrive and not just survive.
What was Flynn on maintenance?
Yeah, just maintenance. Yeah, just maintenance.